Good afternoon, and welcome to today's press conference on the future of Cayman Airways. I would like to first introduce our speakers this afternoon, the Honorable Premier, Mr. Alvin McLaughlin, Honorable Deputy Premier, Mr. Moses Colonel, Mr. Philip Rankin, Chairman of the Board of Cayman Airways, Mr. Fabian Worms, President and CEO of Cayman Airways. I would now like to have Honorable Premier to deliver some remarks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming on this press meeting. Government has so much good news this week that we feel compelled to share it again with you and the public. When this administration took office in 2013, we set forth a plan to stabilize the government and Cayman's economy. Indeed, our financial services business has been performing well, and silver tourist arrivals have been breaking records. Cayman tourism is set to grow even more with the addition of several new hotels and resort properties over the next few years. Tourism is one of the main drivers of Cayman's economy, so it is of utmost importance that we put into place measures to ensure its continued growth. We continue to attract visitors to our shores for rest and relaxation, and also to host and attract businesses to the Cayman Islands, as was the case recently at the recent Impact 16 event. So far, we've heard nothing but rave reviews of the experiences of those visitors. Competition for tourism dollars is fierce, and we want to continue to do the right thing in ensuring that our infrastructure is in place and that the visitor experience is second to none. As such, we have begun in earnest the revitalization of Georgetown, starting with improvement of many of the roadworks that feed traffic into and out of the capital. And I'm sure everyone has seen the improvements being made at Owen Roberts International Airport. That's what we're doing on the ground. So with that in mind, I'm delighted to announce today that Cayman Airways has received approval from the Cayman Islands government to proceed with its fleet modernization plan. The Deputy Premier and Minister with responsibility for Cayman Airways Chairman Philip Rankin, and Cayman Airways CEO Fabian Worms will go into more detail about the aircraft and plan in a moment. I'm also happy to report that for the fiscal year 2014-2015, Cayman Airways delivered audited financial results with a profit of US $3.6 million, and that for the first 8 months of the current fiscal year, Cayman Airways has already surpassed that profit. When this government took office in May 2013, we promised a stable economy and solid finances. This profit by Cayman Airways is another example that this government's plan to move the country forward to create an environment for growth and opportunities for Caymanians and all who live, work, and invest here is in fact working. We are proud to have Cayman Airways as our national carrier, and even prouder that this government has been able to work with Cayman Airways and its leadership to further enhance our customer experience. I will now turn the microphone over to the Deputy Premier for his remarks.
Thank you very much, Premier, and good afternoon to everyone that's attended. I'm very happy to talk about taking Cayman Island tourism to the next level. The government, working with our stakeholders, will deliver an expanded and enhanced Owen Roberts International Airport that I believe each one of you have seen, if not touched, in the recent months with the progress taking place there. We also know that we have increased room capacity, and today we're here to talk about the modernization of the airline fleet to be flown by Cayman Airways. This government is delighted to announce its approval of Cayman Airways' fleet modernization plan in keeping with the airline's business plan. The modernization starts this year with the introduction of the next generation 737-800, followed by the phased introduction of 4 brand new state-of-the-art Boeing 737-800 MAX aircraft between the years 2018 and 2020. By 2020, the 737-300s, which are flown now, will be retired, and Cayman Airways will have a fleet complement of 4 737-800 MAX aircraft. That will not only give our national airline the newest fleet in the region, but will also guarantee growth in the tourism air arrivals as we prepare our airport to accommodate more visitors and as our room stock grows by 20% over the next 3 years. Cayman Airways will now have the range to be able to reach any part of the United States, most of Canada, and also look for other gateways south of here. With the significant capacity growth, the airline is poised to increase the $200 million economic contribution to the local economy that is already being received annually. We are also pleased to state that due to the airline's continued positive financial performance, with the full support of this progressive government, no guarantees or other contingent liabilities were necessary to achieve this milestone. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Board of Directors, management, and all the employees at Cayman Airways for their hard work and commitment to the continued success of the airline and the contribution to the growth of tourism in the Cayman Islands. I'll now turn the mic over to the Chairman of the Board, Mr. Philip Rankin.
Thank you, Deputy Premier. Mr. Premier, good afternoon, everybody. Just following on from what the Deputy Premier has stated, we embarked on a business plan to purchase the existing 300 fleet. Of the 4, we actually purchased 3 of them. And the whole idea was to save the money that we would have paid out in terms of leases, because we only intended to operate them for the next 5 years. And we devised a plan to actually purchase them and to benefit some $22.5 million over the 5-year period, as opposed to paying the lease on those aircraft. And with that, we projected that we would have broken even by the very least, or see a profit. And that's what we have basically done. The second phase of the of that business plan was to actually look at the next generation aircraft, because it's not a matter of whether we're going to change. We have to change the current fleet. And we have done tremendous research. And the aircraft that was mentioned, which is the 800 MAX, that's where we're at. We've, with all the financial analysis and the research and what that aircraft actually brings to the table in terms of its maintenance savings, in terms of its fuel burn, that's like 20% less than what we're actually using right now. You know, there's so many things that aircraft in particular brings that make this truly affordable to Cayman Airways. And we want to keep the momentum going of the profitability and the financial performance that we're currently experiencing. And some may say it's because fuel is low at this point. But either one on its own could not produce the results that we're doing. So what we're doing by selecting this particular aircraft is to ensure that when fuel starts to go back up, we're going to have an aircraft that combats that. And that's why we actually chose the 800 MAX. It gives us the capacity to reach other destinations that the country from a national strategic tourism plan is looking at. So we don't have any limitations on where that aircraft can reach in terms of what the island is looking at in terms from a tourism standpoint. We have at least 20% more room stock that's coming on board shortly. And we're preparing ourselves to maintain our market share of that. I don't think a lot of people know that of all the passengers that come to and from the Cayman Islands, Cayman Airways transport 43% of them. That's a significant market share. And we want to do our best to continue to bring people to and from safely, in comfort, and provide them with the most advanced aircraft there is in the 737 fleet. And that's where we're at today. Fabian Worms can, our president and CEO, he's the technical guru, and he'll be able to share some of the technical aspects of this aircraft. Fabian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Deputy Premier. In terms of the features of the 737-8 MAX, what we'll be getting, I think the Chairman touched on it, but what we'll be getting is an aircraft with significantly lower operating costs than the aircraft we have now, but at the same time we'll have 40 seats extra. So to put that in perspective, for 40 seats more, we're going to be burning 20% fuel less. So that's really significant. Were it not for the technological advances that have been made by Boeing to achieve this level of efficiency, we may not have been able to think as far as being able to achieve new aircraft. But the savings that come with these new aircraft now actually makes it actually affordable. So it's at a time in history when technology is really bringing costs down to the point where we can take advantage of it. These airplanes are completely state-of-the-art. They're inspired and designed by the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, so our passengers can look forward to the same interior. It's a very modern interior referred to as the Boeing Sky interior. It's more spacious, the overhead bins are much larger, we'll have the ability to carry a lot more baggage on board in the cabin, as well as the ability to carry a lot more baggage in the belly. This also translates to more earning potential in terms of cargo revenue from cargo that we can carry on our passenger flights versus dedicated cargo flights. It's a more efficient process to do it that way. Our customers can look forward to all the bells and whistles that go with modern aircraft, including things like Wi-Fi on board and in-flight entertainment. So this is the sort of thing that we know is going to position us really at the front of the pack when it comes to having equipment.
There's just one thing I want to state before we go any further field questions. I want to thank the government for basically keeping me as chairman. I don't think anybody can claim that they went through two governments as chairman of the national airline. And I think they saw the wisdom in having some continuity, and I'm happy that they actually, recognize my abilities to steer the airline as chairman. And I want to publicly thank them for it, because they had the wisdom to, when we approached them in 2013 with our business plan, they readily saw where we were going and were able to help us purchase the fleet. And needless to say, we did not have to get a loan to purchase those aircraft. We devised a plan, and they looked at it, and they saw the merits in it, and that's where we're at today. So I want to publicly thank the government for that.
If I may, I'd just like to speak a little bit about the reliability that our passengers can expect. Just like with a new car, a new aircraft delivers a level of reliability that's unprecedented. As it stands right now, this particular model of airplane, it's slated to go down in history as the most reliable airplane ever built in terms of its design. It's designed to be the most reliable airplane ever built. And just to put things in perspective, our current fleet of 737-300s will experience mechanical interruptions or delays at a frequency of about 20 flights out of 1,000. These 20 flights that are delayed will impact other flights, because one flight, the first flight leaves late, it has a domino effect. So those 20 delays in 1,000 really could translate to maybe between 80 and 100 when you add the domino effect. Moving to the 737-800, which is the first step, which will happen this year, we should see that fall in half, a 50% reduction. And then when we move to the brand new MAXes, there will be a further reduction in half over the 800s. So this is a significant improvement in our reliability. It means that we'll be able to do a lot more with less, essentially.
Honorable Premier, Honorable Deputy Premier, Mr. Rankin, Mr. Worms, thank you for your remarks this afternoon. I would now invite the ladies and gentlemen of the media that are present. If you'd like to ask some questions, we'll take those now. We don't have a long time today, but we will give you opportunity.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm going to ask a few questions because I've got to go soon, so I want to try and get them answered first. Firstly, can you explain to us how the planes are being financed and are you willing to say how much? Secondly, can you confirm where the 20% room stock is coming from other than Kimpton Fire, presumably, if there's any more that you're certain about? And thirdly, slightly off topic, but still tourism, and you're talking tourism. We haven't heard anything about the port for a while. Can you give us an update? And that's my questions. Thank you.
I think those questions are aimed at me.
Only Wendy.
The update on the pier is that you should hear something in a very short period of time, and that means weeks. We were still waiting for some final reports back from the engineers that we had tasked to do some of the modeling for the piers being in deeper water. The 20% room stock is Kimpton, approximately 300, Margaritaville over 200, St. James Point 300, Ironwood. We don't know the number for the Arnold Palmer Golf Course yet, but we expect it to be 250 to 300. What else do we? Hyatt, we're not really sure when they're going to come online. We hadn't included those in our short-term growth, but we had certainly included the 5-star property that DART is going to do, which we believe is going to be a 4 Seasons. So we have 5,500 rooms now. This throws us up over the 1,000 mark, so that's roughly 20% growth. What was the other question you had?
The cost of the aircraft and how it's being financed.
Right. That is something that is in negotiations now from the standpoint of the actual cost. I'm sure you can appreciate that the negotiations aren't at this point public. I think it's fair to say that if you look at the value of these aircraft and what they actually would sell for, that they're probably $50-something million a piece. $100 million apiece. So we would be leasing those planes, and that's what's being finalized now. The business plan called for changing out the fleet, and the board of directors and management has chosen these as the plane of choice. The government has approved their plan, and now the final details are being worked. But we thought it was extremely important because the modernization of Cayman Airways fleet goes hand in hand with the strategy of what the government has been able to successfully develop and drive when you look at the confidence that the investors have in Cayman, when you look at the airport RFP that's out to lengthen the runway itself, when you look at the hospitality school that is empowering our young Caymanians to take part in this industry. That these are things that all need to go side by side in parallel to give the opportunity for the investor, the opportunity for the country, the opportunity for the entrepreneur to be successful. And we strive every day to do that as a government.
Can you just clarify? So there's no loans, there's nothing, so how's it being financed?
It would be a lease.
So Cayman Airways will cover the cost of that as part of the regular?
Correct.
So will that likely mean an increased government contribution to Cayman Airways to cover the cost?
It wasn't in the budget for increased.
There's no increase, and you can get 4 brand new planes at exactly the same as what we're contributing now.
I'm going to let the chairman speak to that. Before I do, I want to frame this in what I've explained to you earlier is the work and the strategy and the strategic planning of this government, which has been extremely successful in growing room stock and creating our product and moving it to the next level. Cayman Airways, I'm extremely proud of it. This government is extremely proud of it. And the 90-something% employees at Cayman Airways are Caymanian. When we grow a product, when we grow our country's tourism, and we have a tool that we use to grow it as Cayman Airways, we want to put them in the position to be successful for the growth that's coming. So if you look at adding more seats by 180 seats on these planes instead of 120. You see that strategically it has been looked at and said, we're going to bring more people for stayover visitation. How do we make this opportunity work for one of the government companies that delivers a tremendous ROI on the investment back to the country itself and take advantage strategically of the growth that's being created? I don't know if you want to speak to.
Yes. Yeah, I'll just emphasize that based on our projections, and obviously we can't preempt any PMFL requirements with CTC, hence we can't disclose anything to do with cost. But I can clearly state this, that based on our projections, the savings with these aircraft, just maintenance savings and fuel alone, we can more than pay for the lease payments on these aircraft. And currently, the model that we did, we looked at our own 300 fleet. And even though we own those, an 800 MAX will add per aircraft almost $2 million more to our bottom line per aircraft. So that's as far as I will go in releasing anything to do with that. But trust me, these aircraft will more than have Cayman Airways continue in the profitability mode that we're currently in.
You might want to speak to there's a process that you have to follow that
Yes.
will be followed.
Yes. You know, we've done all the research. Now our next step is actually to go to CTC with all of our research details, do the RFP, and only at that point, when the particular vendor is selected, we'll be able to talk about costs as much as they will allow us to disclose. But at this particular juncture, we still have the PMFL CTC to follow. And that's our next step.
When do you expect to actually bring these new aircraft into service?
We're going to be adding an 800 November is what we're hoping to bring, an 800, which is a bridge aircraft. It's an 800 NG, what they call. Then the other aircraft that we're talking about that we'll end up with a fleet of 4 will be the 800 MAX.
So you replace one aircraft in November?
What we're going to do is a phase, that 800 NG we will have until we get delivery of the last 800 MAX, which is 2020. And we will do a phase approach. Once we start taking delivery of the 800 MAXs, we will start retiring our 300s. And I want to make it clear, too, that I know there may be a question about what we're going to do for our 300 current fleet. As of this morning, so far, we have already had people that reached out to us about purchasing, inquiring about purchase of those aircraft. So there's still 300 operators out there. And our intention all along was to continue to fly these aircraft and start retiring them, seeking active purchasers while we're flying them rather than parking those aircraft. They still have quite a bit of life left in them, but whereas they can carry out the mission that we're currently doing based on our long-term plans. There was some point in time we had to modernize the fleet. And I think that based on the results that we have experienced, according to our business plan and our actual results, we're on target of what we actually projected that will happen. We just have to continue implementing our business plan.
I mean, it does seem, excuse the question, it does seem kind of hard to believe that you can replace 4 aging aircraft with 4 brand new state-of-the-art aircraft and it not cost anyone any money.
But remember what we're saying. This is coming in a very planned way, and it's coming because there's a 20% growth of room stock that's coming to the country. So you're increasing the opportunity, you're increasing the number of seats, and you're increasing the ability for success with our tourism product.
So Worms, there's been some issues around delays on the Cayman Airways schedule. Will this deal with that completely, do you think?
This, like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to the reduction in our delay rate, the new aircraft will experience a 75% reduction in our delays. We can look forward to that type of reliability. It absolutely is the solution.
Mr. Premier, given the performance of the airline and the significant level of market share, I'm sure that the airline will be very attractive to investors in the near future. Would you be entertaining any offers for sale of the airline in the future?
That's not something that we've contemplated as a government, but I would never say no to. I mean, just off the top of my head, it's something that we'd want to look at very carefully before we took a decision.
Thanks.
I might just add on one technical feature of the aircraft as well, which is very important. What we're going to be doing is doubling the range of our current aircraft. So our current aircraft are capable of missions in the region of 1,500 nautical miles. We're talking about up to 3,500 nautical miles now, which gives us the ability to hit anywhere in the United States, most of Canada, all of Central America, and a lot of South America, northern areas of South America. So it means as tourism opportunities grow and the Department of Tourism seeks to add new gateways or target their focus on new destinations, not destinations, but new source markets, Cayman Airways will be right there equipped and ready to handle whatever growth is necessary.
Is there any consideration of adding an additional plane, given that, I mean, you've already got a full schedule with 4 planes?
Well, if I might elaborate a little bit on that, what's driving all of this is the fact that we have to retire the 4 aircraft that we have at some point, and there is a schedule. The first aircraft is scheduled for retirement next year. What we're doing is we're bringing in the 800 this year ahead of the winter tourist season, so that we can take advantage of having the increased capabilities and, of course, the reliability, because our flight schedule for this winter season is already going to be a very big burden on the 4 aircraft that we have. So that in itself justifies bringing in the 800 earlier than next year to deal with that. And it also allows us to have an orderly phased introduction. So we don't phase one out on the same day that we're phasing one in. There is some overlap. The 800 will be a new aircraft in many respects to us, and there will be a period of adjustment and normalizing operations. So going into this winter season, we will have 5 aircraft. By the end of the program, we'll have 4. And the reliability that we'll have from 4 will surpass what we would have had with 5. Not only will that reliability be surpassed, the number of seats that we'll be able to put into the market with these 4 airplanes will also surpass what we would have needed to use 5 or maybe even 6 aircraft to do in the future. So it's a highly efficient process.
Just to clarify how many extra seats it is, because I think there's 2 different figures.
We're looking at a configuration on the 800 and the 800 Maxes of 162. Our current seating configuration is 122. So we're talking about 40 extra seats for a lower operating cost.
Just one query regards possible different gateways. You're talking about Central and South America. I understand that there's some problems with Mexico and Mexican airspace at the moment. Do we owe them money, or has that been resolved?
Cayman Airways has found itself in a situation where the Mexican authorities have issued us invoices for overflights that took place 10 and 15 years ago. And the records aren't really there to justify it. We cannot find those records. Not that we disbelieve it, but it's a case where we're not the only airline that's experiencing this. It's actually, you can Google it. You will find that there's a lot of carriers that got hit with this. It's always a big topic whenever there's a Latin American airline conference. How do we deal with this issue of the Mexican fees? The amount that we owe, it's not that significant a number in the scheme of things, but it's significant enough for us to not just simply write a check and say, be done with it. On a point of principle, we have to work this out. As it stands right now, we do not have any significant need to operate across Mexican airspace, so it's not a factor for us at this point in time.
But I think it's safe to say that it's known to the airline, and
Yes.
it's with the management and looking at working a solution
Yeah.
out to the problem.
So you don't think it's going to impact any potential flights into?
No. I would go as far as to say that that situation is almost resolved as well. Right, Paul? Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. We'd like to wrap up the press conference now. There will be a press release that goes out today on the fleet modernization plan, so you can look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.